This is about workmanship, what hand-ufacturing is about, craftsmanship skills. It's funny that the word craft became cheap, but it really didn't originate as a cheap word. Even though something can look maybe comical to me in the sense of the coloration, these videos really illustrate the amount of work and harmony that it takes to go through the workflow from one skilled person to the other, to the other, to the other. Our environment is so saturated with throwaway metal, cheap castings, and what happens is somebody will just see something as metal and they don't know about casting, and they'll think that, oh, it's just metal. But as you understand how a casting is made, you can begin to look at another bronze casting and then recognize the quality and the craftsmanship of the build. All right, we're back for another video here. We are touring the world, but I think we're in Korea. They have a lot of fantastic factories there. The title is 40-year-old factory mass produces brass Buddha statues. I think they roll through an intro here because they're not manufacturing the item on the screen. I think they're just showing some sense of their capability. Remember, a lot of these things that are, these videos that are made of these Korean production houses, they're promotional videos to show the skill set and the craftsmanship for other people to hire them to run projects. So let's get into it. Oh, caveat. So although I've cast bronze, there's many people out there that are far more skilled than me at bronze casting and bronze vocabulary. So this is where I ask for a little forgiveness on your side, but I'm going to tell you things that I think of and things that I experienced in the other foundries if it comes up. But this is hardly about me saying how to cast metal. It's a lot of work to make a metal piece.
Did you see the logo on a Buddha?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why, but in India and other countries, Asian countries, you can see it a lot. Like, I don't know.
So the swastika,
Yeah.
was not, Germany appropriated that. There's a history to that shape. It's not we remember it in our lifeline as Nazi, but it predates that by a long shot. Native American cultures use that, and I'm sure there's a lot more to it. My history is not there. We'll bring something up on the screen. I saw it again and again, but I didn't let it diminish my opinion of what was happening here. Look at the size of that beast. Woof. This says something like that. Oh, look at that. So, these, I don't remember this. This is a portable scanner. That's fantastic. I've never used that. Our scanners have a small turntable and they rotate. They're for very small objects. What video is this? We gotta get one of these. I mean, where does this statue go? So they put all of these markings on the statue, contour markings, so they're reference points for the scan. Even they don't put their scales in bags. Nobody does this. Yeah, you know how I've talked about you can always slosh out the catalyst if you, that's what's happening here. I would have pigmented just to see a good mix. But he does this, this is an everyday thing for him. I was so sensitive to the resins, they irritated me that I used resins one day, polyesters, and I fell asleep, and when I woke up there was blood on my pillow. I had a bloody nose. Just me. All right, so something has happened here. We are now, they have a latex mold. Let me talk about these keys. These keys are really good. We'll call them mushroom keys or snap keys. And what it is because the latex liner is so floppy that he's going to be rotationally casting this mold in the future with wax. And if any one of those pieces of latex came in, we call it bagging, fell off of the mother mold, his whole pattern is going to be distorted. So he has to have this liner in the mold and then like to stay there. If you've watched the 1922 bronze casting, they had tiebacks, and these are snap keys. Similar need. Did you hear that click? He's going to pop them in place, and that liner will stay to the outside wall. Oh, no washers. Okay, so now he's getting ready to cast wax. This is a moment where you can get a lot of splashes, and the first layer is a pretty hot layer to get all the detail. And sometimes the detail is just the smoothness, the glassy surface. Either that is a slightly different wax or a slightly different temperature running in that bath. I just don't know. He's got to have like forearms of strength, because you pick up a ladle like that and it's not light. Oh, I haven't seen this before. I'm not experienced with this. It looks like he's pulling a vacuum on a mold with wax in it. I've never seen that. Let's see. Man, they've done that a lot. That was fast. That was a strong vacuum. So this air, right now the inside of that mold is really hot. So he has to cool the wax down before he applies the next layer. If you keep adding hot to hot, it just melts what you did previously. That's heavy. That's why you need that full flange at the top, because the wax has got to pour over. Cool off the layer, do it again, rinse and repeat. The better his wax is, the less work it is later. So he's going to be, this is some touch-up work. Basically, let me see if I can stop it. Basically, this area here is your enemy because it's a break point, meaning that it's a high point that the wax doesn't want to catch on. You see right here? These points all need to be touched up by hand because the wax breaks off. It's like the top of the mountain, you know, the water runs off. This guy's got some good arms. Not even a back brace, right? He's just pure muscle. So what they did, let me talk about this. A lot of foundries that I worked at, well, that's a silly statement. The foundry that I worked at, there was 3. I visited and participated in the casting only at one foundry. And he never did his molds like this. What you see is this step here is sacrificial. If you've looked at any of our slip casting videos, you see that they add a lip that they take off later. And that lip allows this wax piece to be consistently thick, because where they're draining here and here becomes irregular in thickness. So they know they got to go into the mold a little bit in order to have the consistent thickness. It's a great idea. That just gets remelted. Now he's cooling off the wax, chilling it. Because if he takes it out when it's soft, it's literally going to distort. Okay. Zoom. I like the way things look when they're used so many times. Okay. Did you see what he did? He had his hand inside the wax to lift an even pressure to extract it from the mold. He didn't like try to pry out the neck because the casting is too soft. Wow, he's standing it on the head. I take it back. This is... Well, there you go. That was a good casting. Okay, what's happening in this room is now the wax goes in for finishing. These three workers, what they're going to be doing is surface treatment, and they're going to be looking for thin spots. They may hold them up to the light to check transparency, to see where any light is coming through, or they may just be patching. Oh, they're doing more. I think they're going to gate and sprue. That wax has such a particular sweet smell. See, if he hadn't had a good wax casting at the beginning, it's a lot of extra work. So she's going to fix all the flaws. Let's see if I can zoom through that. We'll go here. Now you have to create the pathway for the bronze to flow into the statue. So there's a pouring cup here. There's the sprues and the gates right there. This all will be sacrificed later, but the bronze will be poured in through here. It's going to flow through here and flow through here, but you always have to have an air escape because a mold is empty, but it does have air, and that air's got to get out of there. That's a really nice paddle tool that they made for the wax, because you just slip it behind the wax and then it sticks. All the drips and stuff, it doesn't matter on these. As long as they have a clean connection in these areas, you don't want any weakness there. Number 3000, that says investment. Okay, what did he just do? Let me show you. In their wax process, they built in an area where he can put in this broomstick, so to speak, because what's happening over here is this is a rotating bath of slurry. I don't know what it's called right at the moment. I can't remember, but it's this refractory glue, if you will. And he's going to be dunking the statue in there, and he has to rotate this around, and then he's going to put sand on it, one layer at a time. This is a hazardous part of the foundry because there's a lot of silica. This is the gel coat first. It's a very, very watery mix because you want it in all the detail. It's like a glaze. Ori was cleaning it. I don't know, we never did that. Let's see. You see all those hoses? Those are for drying the investment. We'll get to it later. So it doesn't have a propeller, it just has a blade on the side there. Maybe it was just a wash. I don't know that, I'm guessing. He's not, but I am. All right. Now it's filling up on the inside too because he's got to cast the outside of the statue and the inside of the statue. And if he lifted that too fast, the wax might break off. So he'll rotate this around. He doesn't want it to pool too much. There's some air bubbles in there he might deal with. Oh, that was nice. They had a drain in there for that. That was really nice. Okay. This part matters a lot. So now he's going to cover this with clean silica sand. This is the part that gets hazardous because if you don't have a mask, that silica dust just kind of stays with you, to say the least. Now what's going to happen is he's going to cover it with sand, he's going to set it over to dry, and he's going to use those tubes to get air in the tough to dry spaces because he can't put another layer on unless the first layer has dried completely. See how they have these stations? Wow, where are we now? All right, so here's what happened while they cut away. Is he built up an investment shell of a certain thickness. I don't know how many layers, but it's probably about a half-inch thick of that shell by repeating the dips. Dip, sand, dip, sand, dip, sand. And now what they have to do is they have to take that whole, what's called the investment, and put it where the Buddha head is on top and the cup is on the bottom, and they're going to melt out the wax, and it's going to leave a negative cavity where the Buddha was, but there's an inside of it too called the core, so the Buddha metal is only going to be the thickness of the gap. It's the burnout. Some people burn it with flame, others steam it out, but everything's the same, so they can build these standardized practices. At art foundries, you don't get this kind of not everything would fit in there. I don't know why you get a siren. That's wax coming out of the molds. Looks kind of nasty.
Coffee.
Okay, it's burned out. Yeah, they steamed it. It's an autoclave. Okay, so now they're going to take, that's hot as ever. Would it be, I don't know, steamed? I don't know, that moisture doesn't make sense to me. Again, I'm not the guy. I just know they got the wax out with heat. Guess they're gonna let them dry out. Now those ceramic shells, although they can take a lot of heat, they're actually quite fragile. If you bash them, they shatter. So they're preheating the mold. These molds have no wax in them. And what they want to do is to preheat that mold so when they pour the molten bronze or brass in there, it doesn't shock the mold and crack it. You have to pour a hot into a hot. Taking off some of the impurities. We always wore eye protection because it's too bright to look at. It hurts your eyes. At least mine. That's a thermometer. Okay. There's a lot of heat that comes off that. You wouldn't know it by looking at it, but it's a lot of heat. That's the crucible. They're going to put the metal in that. Oh, these two guys are going to carry it. Yeah. Those get heavy. Those get really heavy. When I did it, I was not expecting how heavy it was. And hot. I mean, this is 1,000 degrees here, and more. All right. I don't know the chemistry on the top, what they did to solidify impurities. I just don't know. It's a guess. But that's to keep the heat while they're walking around and pouring, because that metal has to stay a certain temperature or else it won't flow well into this very thin casting. The hotter the mold is, the more the bronze is likely to flow through it. Otherwise, it will chill. They have, we used to just use cinder blocks and sand, and we'd bury the molds along this. They have this track system. All right, let that cool. These are, I don't know, some part of another statue. We used to go right down the row. They're more organized. Just keep going, keep going, keep going. Yep. I mean, they're very thoughtful about that. Is a hot monkey. The other thing is when you're pouring the bronze and it kicks out like that stream, you really got to aim it well. I mean, it's not easy to do because that stream target changes based on how full your crucible is. That's where somebody who's very experienced at pouring can execute the most simple step. It looks like you're just going to be pouring a drink, but no, it comes out different. Now, the reason I have this big cup here is not just for a target, but the bronze inside needs to shrink. And if it doesn't have anywhere for extra metal to shrink from, it'll shrink from itself in the mold. So you always want to give metal extra heat to draw down. If you think of an ice cube tray in your freezer, when you freeze off ice cube trays, you fill them full, but they shrink down like this and they dip. And that's why they stay the shape against the mold and the dip is at the top. That's basically what they're doing here. They do not want to distort the statue. All right, they busted off the shell, and this is a lot of people just go right to sandblasting. I think the high pressure wash is extremely sensible. All of this, remember they built that in wax. All of this is going to get cut off, this is going to get cut off, this, all of that is sacrificial. That was simply to deliver the metal into the piece. You got to get the shell out of this inside or else it corrodes the metal if it stays there. Now they're going to sandblast. Oh, maybe not. Cutting off the gates. All right, somebody with some safety here. That fan is pulling away that nasty, but he's still getting a few cigarettes worth. A lot of the welders in the States have full hoods and they're fresh air fed. Okay. That'll be recycled. Wow, it even got the finger. That's amazing. This is sandblasting. The interesting thing about sandblasting is it's supposed to be in a very self-contained environment. This opening here is supposed to be one solid rubber glove that you reach into, and so that nothing comes out, because again, that's silica, that's sand, and it gets everywhere. Those gloves wear out fast. I guess they got tired of it. But again, his face is right near all of that sand. These glasses, you have to change them often. Either there's a film on them, but they get foggy because the sand is pitting them. Sandblasting, you can sandblast with a lot of different things. Sand, pecan shell, special carbide gravel bits. All right, we got good surface here. Yeah, now they got to repair, we call it chasing, and that's where you're fixing all the seams. I don't know why he doesn't have glasses. He's looking at that torch all day. It just seems amazing. What he's doing is he's got a brass rod and he's kind of soldering these brass fill in places that the metal chilled out. He's pretty skilled. I wonder what these cost. $1,000?
I think even more.
$2,000 probably? I don't know. Okay, so that's like being at the dentist all day. Oh. That is crazy. This is beast mode. I mean,
It's China.
is it China?
Yeah, it's China.
Son of a, look at the size of that. I mean, it's not interesting to me in the sense of that. What's interesting to me is that they can make something like this. To me, this is like imagery that I've seen, but if they can do this, they could do anything. I mean, that guy's just gonna sit on that sculpture for weeks. Grinding, chasing. All these guys, man. Takes hours and hours and hours. My hands felt like a bee's nest after a day doing that. And it's so slow. So he was buffing. The cotton goes everywhere. What's happening here? Oh, now maybe this is called chasing. Maybe I got my words wrong. Now they're adding detail in where it was lost. And look how they do it. Just pound that line back in. This creates the crispness of craftsmanship. The crispness, a cheap casting won't have this kind of sharp edge line in drapery. And now you know why. Because of the wax work. What they're doing is they're creating this creasing. Now this is the patina. They've already done a few other things. To me, this is when a beautiful bronze begins to look a little too animated to me, but it's not my thing. In the United States, it's very uncommon for bronzes to be colorized. They may be chromed, or like Jeff Koons, he'll put these wild surfaces on, but not these kind of painted looking. So her balance of application and the amount of heat. If she put too much heat on, she's going to burn down too much of what she just chemically put on. So this is a real finesse. And if you F up the patina, or if your surface isn't good, that patina doesn't stick, and you got to take it all the way back to sandblasting. Because that is chemically bonded to the metal now. The heat is accelerating the patination. I mean, in the old days, they used to say that they would take a statue, throw it in the dirt, bury it, and then pee on it, and the acidity of the urine would create a patina. I don't know. Here's a good story. But we're on the home stretch here. That's hot. The control that she has for the patina to be like this at the top, like this on the body, that doesn't happen automatically. That happens because she's doing a real precise application. Yeah, he sweats a lot. It looks like it just happens like this. These people, they're very, very good artists. It was the owner of the foundry that used to do the patinas, because the risk of effing it up at this point was so expensive that you do not throw a kid at this job. They have to be able to go to home stretch. Could you imagine building that Porsche and then it goes into some sort of finishing work, and they F up the surface? It's going to make that engine seem irrelevant. This is about workmanship, what hand-ufacturing is about, craftsmanship skills. It's funny that the word craft became cheap, but it really didn't originate as a cheap word. Even though something can look maybe comical to me in the sense of the coloration, these videos really illustrate the amount of work and harmony that it takes to go through the workflow from one skilled person to the other, to the other, to the other. Our environment is so saturated with throwaway metal, cheap castings, and what happens is somebody will just see something as metal and they don't know about casting, and they'll think that, oh, it's just metal. But as you understand how a casting is made, you can begin to look at another bronze casting and then recognize the quality and the craftsmanship of the build. There's what's his name, Remington was a famous sculptor who did all these Southwest, the horses and the cowboys and the riders being tired, and there's reins and lightness and stuff like this. And the foundries that cast that were really remarkable. And then there's a bunch of knockoffs out there. And this is why it takes an expert to be able to diagnose the quality of the casting, where it was made, what foundry. And unless you understand or have been to foundries to see where they're made, you can't have this forensic analysis. So some people say when they go to get something appraised, you got to take it to somebody who understands how something is actually made. So this is very valuable even if you're not doing it, but to appreciate, if you're a collector of bronze, to appreciate the quality that you've just bought, because you're not just buying the artist's name, you're buying the artisans behind it as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. We're going to get into some really gigantor castings soon.